former DC drug kingpin who's back home after doing 34 years in prison. Welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be home.
Well, you're a very legendary name in DC, so I want to get your whole story starting from the very beginning. So you grew up in DC. What was the 70s like back then?
Well, I was still a kid in the 70s, Vlad. I was 62, born in 62. So I would say with the later 70s in my teenage years. There was all illegal shit going on. That's all we knew. Money was everywhere illegally, but as far as jobs and opportunities, especially for Black people, it wasn't much in Washington, D.C. So, criminality, that's what it was, especially on my block and the surrounding areas, my block of Hanover Place, Northwest of D.C.
Okay, now you and your son's mother actually grew up on the same block, but on different sides
right? Of the street, yeah.
Okay, and one side kind of had sort of like the newer homes, and the other side was a little bit more run down. Is that right?
Yeah, one side was run down, and the other side, it wasn't newer places, but they were more middle class type, on the other side of the block. And it was like they had homes over, connected like homes on the other side, whereas we had the small rundown apartment type things on the other side of the block.
Right, the side that you grew up on, I remember reading your son's book, and you actually had just huge rats just running around your apartment.
Yeah, at night, they would really come out in the kitchen and things like that. And me and my two brothers slept in the back towards the kitchen. It wasn't a bedroom, but it was a room close to the kitchen. We was on a fold-out couch, and we would be under the covers and just peeping out and watching the rats in the kitchen. It was, you make a noise, they run up the pole, the rat will run up the pole. After the noise stop, you come back down looking for food. It's real, real scary, man, for kids to have to grow up and live that way, Might end up in the bed with you for all you knew, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a horrible environment for a little kid, especially.
Yeah, that shit was horrible. Yeah, scary.
Okay, so you're growing up in this environment, and you started to hustle around age 14 or so?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Okay, and what led to that first step of being just a normal kid to, okay, I'm going to start making some money?
The poverty, going to bed, not going to bed hungry. Seeing your mother struggle with the bills, the light cut off this week, next time might be the gas, single parent household, no father figure, and just her, and on public assistance. The check, first of the month, that didn't go far. And after that, I had to watch her struggle. My siblings struggle, and I had to do something myself. That's what I felt. And it was all right there, right out I was in the mix. The environment was right there. So, I had to make a move.
Okay, this is around 77 or so?
Yeah, I guess it would have been, something like that. Yeah, about 70, yeah. Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay, and during that time in DC, was it heroin?
Well, heroin was there, but not on our block. We were more so the Lord marijuana, PCP, that was Hanover at that time. The heroin was uptown and things like that. So yeah, it wasn't. It hadn't. Our block wasn't doing that.
Okay, I mean, if you're talking about PCP, aka angel dust, I mean, this is a drug that would make you go crazy. Essentially, if anyone ever seen the movie Friday, when you see Smokey in the chicken coop and running around with his underwear, that's PCP.
Exactly.
Okay, so how crazy was it being on a block that was selling this type of substance?
It was real crazy. We had people on the block who did indulge as far as using, but just as you said, we were selling it to the rest of the surrounding community. So it wasn't, we just had a few people that every now and then we would say that lunched out, who smoked it and lunched out, but for the most part, we were selling it. They was coming to get it from us and then go back to wherever they came from, and they was lunching out, going crazy for the most part, more than on my block. But that's where the money was being made with selling it. So that.
Okay, so age 14, you start selling, and what did you start with first?
Marijuana.
Okay, which is a fairly easy, no stress kind of thing.
Right.
When did that escalate to something harder?
It was a few, I guess maybe 19 or 20 for the most part, roundabout in there.
Okay, so for 5 years, you were just selling weed, pretty much.
For the most part.
But why did you decide to go from weed into what was the next drug? Was it PCP and
no, I didn't.
Heroin?
Yeah, PCP. I didn't partake in that. The cocaine started happening, and it was like our block went from the marijuana and the PCP to cocaine, and it was more profit in that. It was more. The whole culture had changed. Everybody was the cocaine was the end thing. So if you got it, it's and you got it good, that's the next step, as far as making money and making more and making it faster. And really, it's like moving with the changing of the times. If you stay with marijuana, there was no place for you, no business. Ain't nobody. It's coke now. What you gonna do? But that's how that kind of went.
Okay, this was around 1982. So this was before crack. So back then, cocaine was somewhat of a rich man's drug, right?
Right. Somewhat, yeah.
It was expensive, and you couldn't just be, someone who was financially struggling and buy it on a regular basis. This was more like the doctors, the lawyers would come through.
But you could buy it on a regular basis and not be rich, because it was the portion was made for. It wasn't like, we ain't talking like kilos being sold. We're talking about getting the kilos and breaking them down to your smallest denominator, $50 bags. So that's really where most of the money is made, when you can break a product down to the lowest denominator. Then you serving everybody. You can still sell ounces and quarters and even a kilo if you want to, but if you break it all down to the smallest denominator, you gonna make more money. You can cut it better. For enterprising person, that's the way to get rich fast. So the lower class person could buy cocaine. You ain't had to be rich. Because you can get you $50 worth. You can get $100 worth. Everybody can come up with that. Some kind of way, more so than thinking. So you didn't.
Right, but $50 with the cocaine, with as quick as that high is, you could blow that in 5 minutes, and now you're.
Well, at least you had some. I mean, that's what at least you had. You got it. You got your thing for the day. And remind you too, with crack not really coming into existence at that time, people just blowing. So you blow you a little bit, you still put your little back in there, you blow you a little bit later on, and they make it work, man. Some people $50, you get $50 bag and take them through that whole day, and they good. So yeah, the Lord, they could,
Okay, so now you went from marijuana to cocaine, and you're full blown in the cocaine game. Now with marijuana, it's relatively, easy. People aren't really killing each other and robbing each other over marijuana. Right. But with cocaine, it's a slightly different game. There's more money, more profits, and the violence is usually escalated. So when you moved into cocaine, did things start to change in terms of your operation?
Well, in terms of operation, it changed, just operating. But when you have a certain reputation, or you have a certain name, violence and what you was just describing and things like that, it rarely comes. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just a respect level. I mean, from my experience, how you treat people. You don't, because now I was here first, and now I may be up here, and now I treat you like a piece of shit, or you was once my friend. Because I'm up here now, it's love, man. I mean, mostly from my experience, from what what I'm saying. Every now and then, people that you might not know or don't know you, it might be some problems here and there, man. But my mindset was always like, this is a business. We making money. This is what we here for. The violence and stuff, like I said, it's something that you try to avoid at all costs. But and it does come. It will, and it does come.
We are one of the largest and most trusted heating and air conditioning companies in the state of Delaware. If you're here in Delaware.
And then when it does, you know, that's you handle it however you got to handle it.
Okay, and everything was being run on Hanover Street at this point, right?
Right.
And you guys actually had lookouts on the rooftops.
Yeah.
And when the police would come, there was a term that they would yell out.
Right.
And that was?
Ola raid.
Right. And that means?
That means the jump out is coming, which is the police is coming. You know, so clean up, you know, get out the way, get in if you can, move away from wherever the drugs at. If they on the block, move over here. So if they jump right here and they find it, they can't put it on you and, you know, different things, but it means they coming, police coming.
Right, and I guess Olare is roller in Pig Latin.
Yeah, something like that, or the Ola raid, both of them together is the police and there's a raid coming.
Okay, so you're running this block, and it's not like a typical DC block. I guess it's sort of like a one-way street, and you gotta have to go through side streets to get to it and so forth. So it was somewhat insulated against the police and rival gangs and everything else like that, right?
Right. That was a good thing, yeah.
Well, but at one point the police started to understand what was happening over there.
Right.
And this was around 1985 or so?
Yeah, somewhere in the early 80s like that, yeah, about there probably.
Okay, and once the police started to catch wind and started to go through, what started to change?
Well, I changed my operation, and we got a house, and that changed the operation. That more insulated. Well, at that point, I was no longer out there hand to hand, but I had workers. So now we got a house, and that insulated them with being inside. So now you don't see them. Only the customer sees them when they step into the house or the vestibule part of the house. They don't actually go into the house. They get served and they leave. So the police start putting cameras up and they start doing a lot of things. So for the people who had to operate outside, they were, you know, like really had no cover, but we had cover. And that's what changed as far as changing operation.
By this time, 1985, before you moved, well, by the time that you moved to the house, were you getting busted by the police at all? Or were you still kind of under the radar?
Yeah, I've always never been busted by the police until, you know, but they knew who I were. They knew my name. They knew, but I never got busted.
Up to this point, were there any seriously violent incidents that you had to go through in terms of your operation?
There was a couple. Can
you talk about it?
Not really, but a couple of people attempted a couple of things, you know, because you still had guys who were just like up here in New York and other places, and they hear about your name, you know, and hear the stories about how much money you may have or what you're doing, trying to pull, you know, kidnapping moves and different things, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it was a couple of things that I really don't want to get into, but yeah, I faced a lot of the same things other guys that was in the game face over some period of time, but just a couple.
Fair enough. Now, was it around this time that you and Rayful Edmond met?
Well, we had been met because we went to the same high school. That's where we met at, in high school.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
But was it around this time that you guys started to work together?
No, He had came through my block a few times, and I had noticed him he didn't walk through, he'd drive through with a couple other guys, and they looking, you know, and I was just wondering, you know, but he was just came through looking at that point and observing things. So, but I didn't know what he was asking. I was just wondering, you know how you see people in summertime, people come through, our street was always hustling, bustling, you know, so yeah, that's how that was.
Okay, so you go and you leave Hanover Street and set up your house. And then that next year in 86, was that when crack hit Washington, D.C.?
I had heard something, they were saying freebasing at that time. I had heard something about it, and I didn't really know what it was. I think Richard Pryor, somebody had caught on fire, some things happened. One of these celebrities or something like that, and they were saying freebase, and I didn't know what the fuck that was, but come to find out, that's what they started. Well, that's what he was supposedly doing. I guess it was the crack cocaine, and yeah, so that's when it kind of started. I started knowing about it somewhat.
What changed in DC when it went from cocaine to crack?
A whole lot changed. Money started coming faster, being made, just you couldn't believe it, how fast the shit was going, You started seeing, people more desperate concerning the drugs, doing some more desperate things. And that was to get the crack cocaine, because, it goes so fast when you get it, you need more. And you got to do, you know what I'm saying? So those are two major things that I really recognized that changed as far as the city and the drug game.
Well, yeah, and there's those next 2 years from 87 to 88, the murder rate in DC doubled.
Yeah, I did leave that out. Yeah, but no, it did. The violence started, Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of people during this era from different cities. For example, I talked to Big U from the Rolling 60s, and he said that right around this time is when, with the crack and the more money, the ammunition started to go up. So before, people would have kind of, 22s, 9mm. Suddenly they had Uzis and AK-47s and so forth. Was that happening in DC as well?
Well, we already had that. I don't know what 22. I don't remember none of that small shit. Yeah, seriously. We already, not saying that you had to use them or you use them, but it was just, it was always guns was always everywhere and I guess in the world, really. But I know now is when the shit is really what he talking. That from my opinion, that's when the heavy shit they got out there now. I ain't, back then I don't, but yeah, now to me. So.
Okay. So you're now building up your business and it's 1989. Are you and Rayful Edmond working together by this time or somewhat affiliated?
Yeah, we made a few moves. Yeah. You said 89, right?
89.
That's we're early 89. That was our downfall. So, before that, a few years before that, we was, made a few moves.
Okay, and why'd you decide to start working more closely with Rayful?
It didn't even start out like that. He came to me inquiring about, he had known about me going to Las Vegas and, taking my son and taking other guys that, my friends, and to go and see fights and different things like that. And he was interested as far as taking him going and a couple of his men. And he was asking me, could I get him some tickets to go the next time that I went? So I told him, let me think about it. And, I decided, yeah, I can get you some tickets. We can go to get together. And that's what we did. And, then, we talked and some things went from there, from that point.
Okay. So by 1989, how big was your operation?
I think me and him, we were controlling more than half of the city as far as drugs coming in and being sold. Because that was like basically the peak of our little shit, the short time that it lasted. So yeah, we were probably more than half of the drugs that was coming in Washington, D.C. at that time.
How big were the shipments at that point? Like, what was your biggest shipment during that time?
Probably 100 keys at a time. And that may be once or twice a month.
Okay. And during that time, how much was a kilo of cocaine retail?
We would charge different prices depending on who the customer was, but easily 30,000 or more that we could get for one brick.
So you're talking about getting shipments of $3 million, essentially.
Yeah, something like that.
Did things ever go wrong during that time? Did a shipment disappear, part of a shipment disappear, so forth?
Yeah, one time the whole shipment went wrong. That's when a sting operation that took place. And yeah, we got fucked around. We wasn't there because it happened in California before it made it back. But yeah, the whole all the money or everything, because the guy who was guess you say the middleman, he decided to deal with somebody else instead of the person that he normally got it from. And it was undercover police that the whole operation was a sting. And that was a big downfall to the whole situation. That was really it. But yeah.
And was that 100 kilos that they caught?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're out $3 million essentially.
Yeah.
How do you explain it to the guys that sent it to you that?
No, see, that's
happened.
No, that's the thing. Remember, I was just saying, the middleman dude didn't deal with the guy that we normally deal with. It was the undercover police that he dealt with. So it really never was 100 kilos that he was about to get. So we got fucked for the money and got fucked around. You know what I'm saying? So, and he didn't want to tell us like, man, because it was like a drought in the city. By us being the major supplier, if we don't come off, it's no drugs in the city. So in one sense, we were pressed to get the drugs, and he was pressed to get it for us because he didn't want us to look like, look, man, you ain't doing your job like you used to, man. We need this shit. You saying? So instead of him telling us, man, look, my man is out, man. I don't think that we should let's just hold up and wait till he's gonna make a move with somebody else without not telling us that he's dealing with somebody different. And all the time, it was undercover police, and they had the whole operation set up, man. And all the money got lost. It was never gonna be no 100 keys that we normally was gonna get, which he thought it was. And also, it was the feds involved, and they kind of like knew that it was coming from us. So now this goes into the case just as if we were going to get the 100 keys. That's another. It built the whole case, man. And you know what I'm saying? That brought everything, brought everything down for the most part. Eventually.
I mean, when that happened, did you say, maybe it's time for me to get out of this? I've had a good run. This is really bad on every level.
Of course.
Let me just stop, move somewhere else, maybe even move to a country where there might not be extradition.
Yeah, that would have been the key right there, because it was already in motion right there. After that lick right there was already in motion. Little did we know as far as them coming to get us. And, when you're younger, you think to yourself, I wasn't there. I'm in Washington, D.C. He was in California. In your mind, they don't know that it came from us. It was, he lived in California, the middleman, I'm saying. So you like, we lost the money. Let's just keep doing whatever we're doing. But again, they can't connect us. So you're not really thinking that that's the end of the ball game. But that was just the crescendo to what they already was gathering, whether it's from on his side or whether it's whatever it was. So but when you're young, you don't know this shit. Even if you're older, you probably don't know it. That's how the feds operate. You don't know what they're doing. They're working 24/7 to get you, and you got to sleep 12 hours, 8 hours, whatever you do, while they still working. It's hard, man. And they wanted us bad, man. It was all political, and they wanted us bad, put everything on us in the city that was going on, and boom, that's what it was.
Well, the guy that got caught in the sting operation, did he cooperate against you?
He didn't cooperate himself, but one of the guys that he had, it was just one of the guys who was moving the money with a few females who was taking the money, because you got to get the money from one point to the next point in order for the move to be made. That was all his job was supposed to be. The guy from DC who had the women who was flying the money out, oversee the women with the money, make sure the money gets to the middleman, and you go back to the hotel or you just get the fuck out of town. That's all your job is. But instead, me coming to find out later on, he wants to be on the scene when the buy is made. I'm talking about the guy who's moving the money. He wants to be on the scene when the buy is made, some type of fantasy excitement that he wanted to feel by being a part of the buy going down. But little do he know again that it was a fucking sting operation. So now he caught up in it, and then that's another connection to DC, and then so he the one who wound up snitching and telling everything. That's
well, when you're talking about shipments this big, 100 kilos, millions of dollars, you know, I'm not going to ask where you got it from, but I'm assuming it's a foreign country, right? And at some point, didn't you want to just cut out the middleman and maybe fly to this country and start dealing with the guys directly, as opposed to having a guy in the middle like this?
No, not me. I want the less exposure, the less chance of. I'm not flying no fucking foreign country when you could pay something such and such, take $2,000-3,000 off each, whatever you want. You know what I'm saying? It's just too risky. That's me. But some people want to be like that guy. You know, he want to be on the scene. He want to be. Not me. I want to be low key. I want to be out the way and still, you know, getting money. But, you know.
Okay, so then April 15th, 1989, there was a show in DC called City Under Siege, where they would essentially just talk about crime in the city and what's happening and so forth.
Right.
Your son and your son's mother are at home watching TV, and they suddenly see you get arrested on television.
Right.
What led up to that arrest exactly?
They had a sealed indictment, you know, and they chose that date for whatever reason to start rounding people up. And, you know, I was one of the ones. They was looking for all of us, but wherever, you know, if they could catch you and had the surveillance and you was there, because a lot of, like out of 29 or so people that got arrested, some got caught weeks later, depending on, like I said, where you was at and how they could get you. So I was one of the ones, you know, that the secret indictment was open and they went to arrest. So that's what led up to. But that California bus with that for the 100 key, that was the last. That's all they felt that topped it off for them to come. Even though it was a little while after it happened that they did, but yeah.
Well, you're 26 years old at the time, and you had mentioned this earlier. This was your first arrest ever in life?
Ever in life, yeah. I mean, I had been on the block a couple times. The jump out, come through, jump out, get up on the wall. You know, other people say it, but I never had nothing or nobody had, and they just keep on going. But they knew who I was, and you know, they just couldn't never get me. You know.
Okay, well, when you first get cuffed, you have money, you have lawyers, you know, you could fight it.
Right.
Are you initially thinking, okay, this is no big deal, I'm gonna give my lawyer $100,000 and I'll be out tomorrow?
Exactly. But that shit wasn't like that, Vlad. They had it. This shit was set. It was serious. It was big. The way they was carrying it, man, we had no chance. But I'm thinking just like you got. I got my lawyer. I paid my lawyer. We ready. I'm gonna be walking out this motherfucker in the next few days and shit like. But yeah, I got surprised. It was real. It was serious.
Okay, so you got no bond.
Yeah, no bond.
All right, and Rayful Edmond, did he get arrested during that same operation?
Yeah.
Okay, so you get arrested. Rayful gets arrested. You said 29 people as a whole get arrested,
about
right?
that, yeah, about that.
Well, and then 2 days later, the Washington Post did an article about the whole situation. You know, you and Rayful Edmond were in the article as sort of the heads of the operation. It was actually a joint investigation between the DEA, the FBI, and the DC police.
Right.
They claimed at the time that you and Rayful controlled 20% of the cocaine and crack in the city. And they were saying that the network generated more than $2 million a week at that time.
So are you asking me, is that the amount, or?
Was that accurate, or?
I would say not.
Okay. But more or less.
maybe one a week or one every 2 weeks, something like that, depending on things fluctuate, things happen, you know. Yeah, just different parameters. They might take 1 month and then.
This was me, struggling to keep up with posting consistently on YouTube and getting less views than normal, until I found Spotter Studio. Spotter Studio is an AI software built to help YouTubers come up with video ideas, titles, and thumbnails based on data that leads to better performance. It analyzes everything about me, my audience, my past videos, the ones that overperformed, and the ones that didn't. Let me show you. So here, I'm looking at hit videos my audience is watching, and if I click brainstorm on this video, I get ideas on how I can create something similar, but in my style. Look, I was able to draft a thumbnail, find a title, and outline the concept for my next video. Spotter Studio also helps me track how my videos perform over time, down to the first 7 days. It knows what my audience wants before I even do. Using these tools makes it significantly easier to not only create high quality content, but consistently as well. So if you're a YouTuber, I'm telling you, give Spotter Studio a try. You can get a full access free trial for a month right now.
Unlike other deodorant creams, Native is silicone-free and leaves no residue.
Nate? Why this one?
What else is there?
Aphrodite! Try Native, an effective whole body spray made with natural propellants. Clean all-day odor protection isn't a myth, it's Native. Aluminum-free deodorant for pits, feet, and more isn't a myth, it's Native.
They contribute that to the whole year, or in the whole 2-3 years, and you know, so shit varies.
Well, I guess later on, a witness said that she saw $3 million in cash at your house. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That was one of the trips going out to, yeah, exactly.
Dealing with this much cash before you got busted, how did you launder the money essentially?
Well, different ways that I'm not going, because I very rarely, I don't like to bring other people's name up in what my dealings, but they just happen to be involved too. So yeah, different ways, man, you know.
I mean, was there a bigger plan before you got busted? Like, okay, look, I'm going to stack up this much money, and then I'm going to maybe buy this business, and I'm going to move into this industry.
Yeah, always.
And what was the plan?
The plan was to, honestly, for me to invest, provide for my son, family, where they won't have to maybe struggle like I did, and take care of my friends and relatives. You know, I was young. I should have, I didn't have that much. I should have had more sense than what I did. All that was good part, but it should have been an exit plan also. But that's what I didn't have. Thought it could just go on for however long, forever for the most part. But yeah, you young and dumb, you know, somewhat.
Were you and Rayful in communication during this time and before the trials started?
Yeah, we frequently talk every day when we were out in the world, some kind of way, talk or see each other every day, doing that.
Right, but I meant after you guys were both in jail, because he didn't get a bond either, right?
Right. Yeah,
so you guys are both locked up for
right.
Affiliated things. Were you guys in communication?
Yeah, because we was in the same place, DC jail. We got snatched out and went to Quantico Marine Base. So yeah, we was seeing each other. We was right there together.
So how long after you get locked up does the actual trial start?
I guess a couple of months after we got locked up, the trial. It's just 2-3 months somewhere in there. 89, yeah, because we got convicted the same year. 89 is already April. Yeah, it was some months. Yeah.
Right. Okay. How much money did you spend on lawyers?
I probably spent about $200,000. It was a fucking waste, but you're fighting for your life and it's whatever. But it was already set. Everything was set, no matter what lawyer you had, how much you spent, but you didn't know that at the time. And you look back at hindsight and you say, oh yeah, they got us good. It's already set, seriously, you know?
I mean, was there a plea deal on the table? Did your lawyer try to negotiate?
No. That's what I'm telling you. That's how serious it was. It went hard, man. It wasn't no plea deal. They wanted to make us an example. That's what it was about.
Okay. So no plea deal on the table, which is crazy because usually there's some sort of plea deal.
Yeah, back they had nothing, you know. I look at these, and not just with our case, but I'm just saying in those times, as I see from the long time I've been locked up, and all these guys coming in for drug cases and everything, and everybody saved, everybody got a plea deal. And that's why, you know, like they say, damn, the federal system, as far as convictions, is whatever percentage. And out of that percentage, it's mostly plea deals. Ain't nobody taking this shit to trial no more. And I think what happened to us is what started that shit by motherfucking, not just how we got convicted, but the sentences that we got. And people who followed us, people start seeing, man, don't fuck with the feds, man. You better take that deal on that motherfucking table. You see what happened to Rayful and them. You see what happened to R Street. You see what happened to Newton Street. We started that get tough shit started with us, and from that, so people started seeing that. That's why you see so many people taking the plea deal. That's what they doing, man. And that shit started from, which we was never offered one, but that's the tough shit and the tough sentence that started with us as far as drugs, and it went from there. So that's what it is.
Okay, so your lawyer can't get you a plea deal, no matter how much money you're throwing at him.
But to be honest too, Vlad, the plea wasn't even never in my, you know what I'm saying? It's just different now, man, and people are different. Like, I'm just saying in hindsight, even though I did 34 years in prison, if they would have came to me and said, offer me a plea to 30 years, I would have told them, you fucking crazy, 30 years? I'm not taking no motherfucking plea to 30. But now, if you ask me that question after me seeing what the fuck things was, it just, that shit wasn't happening back then. It was plea to what? I got a lawyer, I got one of the best lawyers in the city. I'm fighting this shit. But now it's like everybody taking pleas. It's shit different, man. And that's why you asking me these things, because you seeing what you see, which is what is now. But back then, it wasn't just for me and us. It was just like, we just didn't roll like that. It's like a police, especially, I be seeing dudes taking cops to pleas to 20, 30 years. Like, that shit is like water. And that's a lot of time to do, man. When you admitting to some shit and saying, I can't appeal this or nothing, I'm gonna take this plea and I'm just gonna go lay down for that, whatever. But now I look at it too and saying, these motherfuckers smarter than I was. They know these people ain't playing. We thought it was, it wasn't as serious as what it was. But yeah, back then, as far as pleas, it wasn't even, they wasn't offering them right off the bat. And even our mindset was that we ain't taking no pleas. We ain't into that shit, man. Let's fight this shit or whatever, but it's different now. The guys learned from what the fuck happened to us and other so-called drug operations, that major drug operations in the city, that they dudes learned. So they started to take the plea, man, and just, roll with the less time as you can get, instead of fucking around getting life without parole, like what happened to me. But
right.
Yeah.
I mean, because while you were locked up, BMF became some of the biggest drug dealers in the country, and Big Meech and Southwest T took 30-year plea deals, which everyone thought was crazy. But Southwest T is home, and Big Meech might come home. But if he had that life at trial, they might still be there.
Yeah, and you would think that, looking at Big Meech in his situation, that they wouldn't even be afforded a plea deal or the cop, and I think it's also somewhere with the government too. They don't have they have the money, but they don't want to spend the money to keep going through these lengthy trials and spending it when they can be like, because honestly, 30 fucking years is a life sentence. It's more than a life sentence. Back in the day, 20 years was a life sentence. Now it's 30 years. So really, the government getting the same thing that they actually would get if you went to try. So it's an economic thing, man, which we didn't have or we didn't understand back in our day. And that's how things is now. So yeah, yeah.
Well, you weren't offered a plea deal, but usually in situations like this, the government will say, hey, cooperate against everyone give us some names. There's a lot of outstanding murders, unsolved, and so forth. And we could make this go away. We can even put you in, witness protection and so forth. Were you offered that when you first got arrested?
Never. And even with Rayful, as far as I knew, in our initial arrest, and you know what I'm saying, he wasn't, because I'm telling you, this is not just me just saying that when I'm saying how serious they took it, and it was like it was a whole blueprint plan. We were going to be the first major drug operation to go down in Washington, D.C. And from that point on, and then the next, it's like a domino effect. R Street, Newton Street, First Street, all the other outlining major drug operations. And that's exactly how it went. It was like a domino. So it was like, if they would have did like what you suggest somewhat, even with plea deals or wanting cooperation, they didn't need it because they had everything what they wanted enough to convict us and convict the next and convict the next and convict the next. And then, you know, that's how they saw it, and that's how they seen it. They didn't, you know, but they never came with no offers like that of no cooperation for whatever reason it may have been. But they knew from me, they could stick that shit in their ass. They wouldn't bring that shit to me. So I don't, you know, that's just that. So
how long did the trial last from start to finish?
What, 3 months or so. Three and a half months, something like that.
During the trial, did you feel like, hey, I got a chance, you know, maybe there's reasonable doubt and some of the jury members are going to vote my way, maybe get a hung jury or retrial, something?
Yeah, I felt something like that. My name was very rarely mentioned throughout the trial, even though, and then they were saying that me and Rayful Edmonds were equal partners in the conspiracy, but yet they charged him with the higher offense and didn't give me that same charge. But
Michelob Ultra, superior life beer.
The charge that I had, still, I was facing life without parole, just like him. But he had been charged with the CCE. So that brought a little thing, as far as my lawyer was saying too, that, and it wasn't a lot. I wasn't the flashy type, more so that he was. So his name was throughout the whole trial, everything, Rayful. But as me being the so-called partner or whatever, I was very rarely mentioned. So that brought a little, like it might be some hope there or whatever, or maybe, you know, not getting convicted of all the charges or whatever, but that wasn't the case. It wasn't the case. So, but it was, like you said, yeah, it was a little hope there, but yeah.
When the jury finally read their verdict with guilty, how did you feel?
I felt fucked up, miserable, you know? It's like your life is over, you know? And the first thought came to my mind was my son. My son, what, you know, I know it hit him way worse than me, because I'm a grown man and I can, you know, but a 9-year-old child, man, you know. So my son, that was my first and most thought and fear, you know, about how he was gonna feel and what was gonna happen concerning him. So yeah, I'm you know, I'm a human being. That shit knocked me out, man, you know.
Well, you get found guilty. How long after the guilty verdict did the sentencing actually occur?
Probably a couple months after that. I think we got sentenced around about December that same year, somewhere in there. I think it was a little bit before Christmas, if I'm not mistaken.
And when the judge read the sentence, what did he say?
He read the counts off, you know, and each count, he gave me the max on it. And the last count was drug conspiracy, which carried the life without parole. And yeah, he read it off with the vicious authority, that the racist authority that we already knew he was throughout the trial. We saw that. But to hear his voice, the way he called it off, you knew that he meant that shit and he wanted you to die in prison. I never forget hearing his voice, you know? Yeah.
When you heard life without the possibility of parole, you're 26 years old, half the age that you are right now.
Yeah.
How did you feel inside?
Man, your motherfucking heart skip a beat. It's you can't even describe it. The worst shit is like, it's just what it was. Like they telling you you're gonna die in prison. That shit's serious, man. You're gonna die in prison. You're gonna live the rest of your life out in prison and die. That's it. Slow death. So that shit is scary, man. And for the young people, I always try to just give them my example and letting them know that, man, don't get taken with this shit, man. You know what I'm saying? What I've been through and what happened to me can happen to you. The same cell that they just released me from after 34 years, that cell open, and they want to put you in there. But you got to do something to make them put you in there, and that's breaking the law. It shit ain't worth it. You can end up just like I was. I was just blessed by God and blessed by my son in order to get my life back. But too many of us who get life without parole, you don't make it back out. You die in prison. So for all the young people, if you want to take that risk, and I'm highly telling you that it's not worth it, don't take the risk. Crime don't pay, man, in that way. So,
well, on the day of the sentencing, your son went to go visit you in jail. And he said that was the first time he saw you cry. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not, I cried, one, because I knew that I just got a death sentence, two, my son, is only gonna have a father from prison. Also the trauma of the stuff of me getting the life sentence and the life that he once knew being over with me there. And it hurt, man, Any man that's gonna tell the truth about a situation like that, this shit is not no joke and no game. That's what I want young people to know, man. That shit made a grown man, made me cry. Tony Lewis Sr. made me cry. The drugs, whatever they label me in the world. But they can strip all that shit, man, and break you down to the lowest common denominator. It's serious shit when they tell you your life is over.
Well, right. And to make matters worse, because you're being housed in DC during the trial, but then once you're, sentenced, they send you to California and Lompoc.
Right. But even before that,
the whole other side of the country.
But even before that, they said, I don't know if but they kicked us out of the DC jail and put us on Quantico Marine Base. That was another whole element of shit that was tough as fuck. You think solitary confinement and the military shit being locked up under their jurisdiction, that shit was another, it was devastating, not just to me, but to my son and family who wanted to see me, or just, it was, they took us through all the shit, man, that's not normal. So leading up to going to Lompoc or getting sent to Lompoc as your destination to live out your death sentence. And it was a United States penitentiary. It wasn't no like going to the FCI, like how these guys, going to FCI starting out with one of the cases, Big Meech, he go to FCI, nothing towards him, but I'm just saying the new way they do things. Back in my day, when you was considered a major, whatever drug game, murder game or whatever, and you got convicted and you got time like that, you going to the big boy house right off the top. You don't care about your first offense. You just got locked up. That's where you going. And back in the 80s, that's what it was. It wasn't no going to these FCIs, which is a medium security prison. You're going to maximum security prison, and you got to deal with all that shit that comes with that. What's there? So,
well, your son talked about how when you got locked up, you couldn't really have anything in your name. So I guess the house was in your grandmother's name, and now the money is, going away. They had to sell the house, and now your family's going through financial hardship because of your situation.
Right. And one of the main reasons with the selling of the house and stuff like that was that they were coming for assets. And if you were smart, you had to start selling shit and getting it, because it's better to end up with something, even if you sell something for lower than the price that you bought it. But they coming, and they know that, okay, this person that you got the name in the house or the vehicle or whatever the case may be, they really don't make enough money to even afford that shit. We just ain't look at it at the time that you did it like that. But now that we coming, they was looking at, matter of fact, our judge gave an order that they wanted all assets found and liquidated, anything concerning any of us, especially me and Rayful. So that's when they started on that. So to kind of be smart and head it off, you started calling, hey, look, you got to sell the house. You got to get rid of it. It's better than having nothing. And so that was just the downturn. And again, finances played a part in it too, because the money is money got confiscated. Certain people who had money, old money, now that you got the life without parole. Oh, what? Can't find them there. You can't find them with them. There's a whole lot of shit. But yeah, things financially changed a whole lot, man, in a bad way.
Yeah, and this is a story that I've heard time and time again. I remember when I interviewed Freeway Ricky, who was one of the biggest drug dealers on the West Coast.
He was in Long Park with me. We was on the same unit, Freeway Rick. Yeah, Rick Ross. Nice. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Freeway Ricky Ross.
He was on second tier.
Yeah. He was talking about how all the money he put in people's names, the property and so forth, when he ended up beating his case, his life sentence, the property that was in other people's names, they didn't want to sign it back.
All kinds.
And you can't do nothing about it. Yeah. All the money that you put aside, well, I needed it more than you did. And there's an excuse, or people just disappear. It's a story that I hear over and over again.
Yeah, get fucked around. Like you said, it's a story over and over again. But you have no choice at that time when you're in the criminal life. You got to do it that way. That's the only way it's done. And then when the shit hit the fan, you get fucked around for the most part. Not all the part, but something for the most part.
Well, right around the same time that you get sentenced, Rayful Edmond gets sentenced for life without parole, as well as his mother gets 14 years for her involvement in his enterprise.
She initially got 20-something at our first. She got 20, 23, 24 years. Got it on appeal, got it dwindled down to 14, and she wound up doing,
Right. And some of his sisters and his cousins were also wrapped up. In this whole situation. Right. So at the time that both you guys get arrested, your son, Tony Lewis Jr., is actually really close to Rayful Edmond.
Right.
And the two would, talk on the phone. He'd go visit him in prison and everything else like that. But during the time that Rayful was incarcerated, he started to actually continue to deal drugs, allegedly even at a higher level than he was doing on the street.
Right.
Did you know about this while you were locked up yourself?
At first I didn't, but then at first I was hearing about some things, but I'm like, people is always room with Rayful name always in the middle of something, and so I wasn't paying too much attention to it. And then a few people, people get moved from so some people had got moved from Lewisburg where he was at and wound up in Long Park. And they that knew both of us. Like, Tone, man, your man down there, man, he doing it. Oh yeah, he doing it down that motherfucker. I'm telling you, man. You know what I'm saying? That's when I started really knowing that it's some validity to what I'm hearing, So
well, yeah, while he was locked up, he hooked up with someone named Dixon Dario and Osvaldo Trujillo Blanco, who was the son of Griselda Blanco, who was considered the godmother of cocaine.
Yeah.
And they started to actually do these drug deals that were on a massive level, to the point when he finally got caught, they gave him another 30 years just for that. But during that time, your son would call him on the phone, and essentially he would ask your son to put the phone down for like 5-10 minutes, and then there would be three-way calls.
Yeah, he would call my son. Not my son calling him. He would call my son from prison.
Sorry, my mistake. Yeah, he would call your son
and get him to make three-way calls and stuff for him. But I knew that my son would talk to Rayful from time to time, because sometimes he would call my son and say, tell your father such and such. When your father called, he would send messages through my son like that. Now, we're talking about other things and stuff like that. I didn't know exactly what my son was talking to him about. I thought he would call and say, hey, little Tony, what's going on? How you doing? Da, 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 da. And then as time went on, I started to find out, he was calling my son, and You know, that's also I talk to my son. What is y'all talking about on this phone? So what Rayful, you know, but yeah, he was calling my son and you know, making some three-way calls. But a lot of times what I knew, he would have him call another girl for him or call whoever he may call, but he would never, if he was doing something nefarious, my son didn't know what he was doing, you know. My son was younger guy, but and then I know Rayful, he gonna talk in a certain way with my son probably didn't put down the phone when he got, you know, when he called somebody for him. My son wasn't thinking about listening to whatever he was saying. He just figured doing him a favor. You know, that's my, you know, so-called uncle, whatever we go, so I do him a favor. He want me to call somebody for him, and just, my son didn't know nothing about whatever. He didn't care. Had no idea if anything was wrong.
Well, right. But then one day, Rayful called your son and said, look, you're about to hear something in the media, and just know that I had my reasons.
Exactly. And I got a similar call from him when I was in USP Law program at the same time, and similar comment also, but it just went different for me because the SIS, which you might heard about from other guys locked up, they the main security in all these prisons, and they came and got me and brought me to their office. And I'm like, what? I'm thinking I'm going to the hole for something that, you know, because different disputes happen and they'll come and get you and they'll tell you whatever. And they take me to their office and he's on the speakerphone in their office. So I'm like, what the fuck? What's up? Why? I can't tell you too much right now, man, but I just want to let you know that, you know, I did some things, but he never told me exactly what. And when we got off the phone, they told me what he had did or was about to do. So I really got the same similar type call that my son got, but just in a different way. And with neither one of us knowing what was going on, what he was actually talking about. But you know, that's how that went.
Well, that phone call was about Rayful Edmond agreeing to cooperate.
Exactly.
He told authorities about 20 different murders that he knew about.
Exactly.
I guess the justification was to get his mother out of prison early. Did he tell on you at all?
It depends on how you look at it. I took it in some kind of way on a couple of people's trials that he did go and testify on. He brought me up in the trials and talked about me and his dealings through the years. At the time, I got things in on appeal, and I'm feeling some kind of way because I'm like, what the fuck is you bringing my name? Or whatever you got yourself into, whoever you dealt with, or that's y'all business. But to get up there and describe me and what we did and what we dealt and how we did things, yeah, I took that offense to that and felt as if, yeah, you telling on me too. Due to the fact that, again, I'm trying to get out of prison and I got things in court. And now, okay, I don't condone nothing that you doing. You know, if I had been a part of something, whatever you was doing, then I'm gonna put my hand up and say, I knew what I was doing, or if you told something on me, I set myself up for that shit. But for me to not know what you're doing, not have anything to do with it, and then you testifying on somebody else in another trial in another state, but you want to talk about Tony Lewis and basically, you know, what the fuck is that about? So you saying fuck my chance of ever getting my freedom, and you know, with whatever you and the people that you dealing with, whatever y'all had going on, which I don't have nothing to do with, and I don't condone no ratting and none of that shit that you doing in the first place. But that's how I felt. You asked me, did I feel like did he tell on me? I said, you can take it in two different ways, but I did feel like that just because I was trying to get my freedom back, and you put me back in the spotlight, and you told some things that was never known before by the government, and you told that shit on me and what me and you did. So yeah, that's how I felt.
Well, yeah, I mean, your son went from having Uncle Ray to now this guy's a snitch and a rat and the enemy.
Yeah.
Who's telling on his dad.
Exactly.
Oh. Did you and Rayful Edmond ever, talk to each other after that, last phone call?
No, we didn't.
Okay. So you're still doing your prison time. And, being a DC guy, from what I understand in prisons, you know, I mean, there's the gang ties and so forth, but usually the cities kind of stick together, right?
Exactly.
How was your time in DC in prison with the DC crew? I mean, were there situations where there was wars and so forth that you guys had to deal with along the way?
There's always, yeah. There's always, if you're from DC, there's always gonna be situations in prison. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, just like every state knows that they know how hard DC go. You know, they don't want that shit. But if it comes, then but it was situations, exactly. All the time. So yeah, that's what.
What do you think was the most serious situation you got into in prison?
Well, not me personally, but I'm just saying, just DC in general, there's a whole lot of stuff that happened, man. You know, some shit can happen down the hallway, some shit can happen in the unit right there, you know, with you. But I never been that basically that kind of guy with that prison shit, man. That shit it gets you no money. It's you know, sometimes if something is unavoidable, then it's unavoidable. But, you know, just a lot of shit with the prison shit is really, it ain't worth shit, in my opinion, for the most part. So that was something that I, you know, shied away from a lot. Especially if there's no money involved, if that's what my thing was at the time, if there's no money involved, that shit is frivolous to me, you know, but shit always happened. But most of the shit that happened in prison is about small shit, dumb shit, man, in my opinion, you know, and yeah, that wasn't my thing, man, you know, so yeah, but a lot of things happen, man, but that don't always mean that you personally involved because it happened. Even if, you know, even if it is your city, you try to give your 2 cents. Sometimes you try to mediate shit, and sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. And sometimes you got to back away and let it happen. And that's what it is.
You know, a lot of people I spoke to that have done prison time, they talked about the prison rapes, and they talked about how sometimes the younger dudes would come in and the older dudes would basically gang rape them and so forth. You yourself, did you see this type of thing happening in prison?
No, I was never around that shit. I never saw it happen. You know, I've heard of some shit happening, but I never, you know, and most of my DC homies, man, you know, we not gonna let that shit happen, not to none of us, you know, and sometimes not to others if we are present and we have, you know, we see it or whatever. But I've heard some things, man, you know what I'm saying? But no, that shit is, yeah, I don't know much about none of that, you know, yeah.
Well, after Rayful cooperated, your son went to go see you. And I guess he was around 16 years old at the time. And you guys actually talked about the whole Rayful cooperating situation.
Right.
And I guess that was only the second time he actually got to go see you. So how was that meeting like?
You know, he had questions, you know, as a 16-year-old. You know, Rayful was somebody that he, you know, really, you know, looked at as, you know, as a family member, you know what I'm saying? And it really affected him what he did and what the reverberations from it and the effect that had on him. A whole lot of people in our area. So, and he had questions about how he wanted to proceed, you know, concerning that. And, you know, as a father, you got to deal with that and try to enlighten your child, protect your child, you know. And that's what our conversation was, just somewhat about that. It wasn't no long conversation on that. We had a lot of other things to talk about, but yeah, we discussed that. We discussed, you know, Rayful, and you know, and we had to deal with dad's situation and his situation, growing up without his dad and growing up on the same block that I lived on. It just so many, you know, of situations that a young teenage boy deals with growing up. So not just, and then with him being Tony Lewis Jr., same name, same everything. So yeah, we discussed that shit briefly, and man, just got some pointers, and he got some knowledge on it, and yeah. And then I learned some things that I didn't know about, like these phone call shit, and I'm grateful calling way more than I knew, and just different little things. Yeah. So yeah, we talked about that.
Well, your son, who has the same name as you,
Right?
You know, except for Junior, he actually
Right.
has like father, like son tattooed on his arm.
Right.
But unlike his father, he decided to go a different route.
Exactly.
And by 2010, he started an organization called Sons of Life.
Right.
Tell me about that organization.
Oh yeah, man. My son, he has made me so proud of him, man. So that's what kept me going, actually, man. To see his accomplishments and to see the difference in him. Not so much to see the difference in him and me, because as human beings and as men, we the same through and through. But to see his direction, which was different from mine, and to see how serious he was about his community, about his city of Washington, D.C., his commitment, you know, to the younger people, and him taking my lesson of my criminal life and my incarceration and using that in a different way, man, you know what I'm saying, to affect change in our community, in our city. And I'm just the proudest father in the world, always have been back from, I say 2007, when he really got his prominence, man, you know? So just the great things that he do, that helped me every day, man, with motivating me, man, in prison with all the nonsense and, you know, the negative shit that I was around every day in prison. So, yeah, man. And, you know, his Sons of Life, and now his nonprofit, or what he's a part of, a nonprofit, DC or Nothing, with the wonderful Miss Angel Gregorio, him and her, man, they just been so amazing to the young people and just returning citizens or former incarcerated people in our city. Yeah, man, just amazing, man. And now for me to be here and be a part of that and be a part of my son, this is my second life, man. I'm back, you know. I'm back from the dead. So yeah, but it's all about my son, man. All about him.
Well, by 2019, Rayful Edmond was sent back to DC for them to decide whether his life sentence should be reduced based on all the information that he gave them.
Right.
And then by 2021, the government actually gave him an early release for that initial sentence, but there's a 30-year sentence that he got on top of that whole sentence because of the drug dealing in prison.
Right.
And at this point, is he still in prison or is he out?
As far as I know, he's still in prison, but he should be out soon as far as I know.
Right, because after he cooperated, he had to be put in witness protection inside of prison, right?
Right. Well, they got separate prisons for that now, so he don't even have to. Yeah, they got separate law. It's not many prisons with not just him, but other of his kind that has done that. They in a whole separate. It's still a federal place, but it's off the map. You don't know where is that or what is, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's what it is.
Okay. So for your situation, you were locked up all this time, but then Trump signed a law called the First Step Act.
Right.
Tell me what that is.
Oh, the First Step Act, it's like the first step in rectifying the crack cocaine law, the one where the 100 to 1 ratio was applied to, like for people like me in the 80s. And, you know, ever since the crack had first started, our president, Joe Biden, was the architect of this 100 to 1, this ominous crime bill, mandatory minimum sentences. And so it was like a First Step Act to hopefully getting it to 1 to 1. This took it to 18 to 1 as far as the sentencing purposes, 18 for every 1 gram, 18 grams every one, where it was 100 to 1 at first. So yeah, that's what helped get me out of prison with that particular bill with that ratio in it, because they brought me back to really sentence me under 18 to 1, which that still is unfair because, you know, powder cocaine is 1 to 1. Why the fuck is it I got to get sentenced 18 to 1 more when I was sentenced to 100 to 1? So yeah, that's what the part of the bill that I utilized and you know, got me out of that.
I mean, when you first heard about that bill, was there like I mean, I'm sure there was an excitement all through the prison system everywhere.
Right.
So did you feel like, okay, this is going to be the bill that gets me out early?
No, I didn't feel that because there's a catch to the bill, a couple of catches to the bill. One was, for me, I was sentenced for both powder cocaine and crack cocaine. So in the past, when I would try to bring up the fact that this is unfair, the sentence that I was sentenced to under the crack cocaine, whereas every gram that I had, y'all charged me for 100 grams for that one. So, but when I would say that, the judge would be like, okay, Mr. Lewis, you right. Okay, we give you that. But you still got the powder that holds the same sentence as the crack. So you still got a life without parole sentence. It don't matter. So that's what was continuously, that's some unfair shit that they allow the government to do, to charge you with the same two drugs when it's actually really one drug. And so if you get some play on the crack cocaine, the powder part of it keep you in the bracket where you still remain with life without parole. So I wasn't excited because I knew that that's what it was. And then in that same offering, when you go in on the First Step Act, anything that you apply for under the First Step Act is always the wording in there that is under, it's the judge's full discretion of whether he want to give it to you or not. Even if you actually meet the criteria, that judge can, like, say, for instance, I got caught with a knife in my cell previously, like a year or two before, or 4 or 5 years, or I got caught with drugs in prison. When I go up for this plea, I can say, look, I'm under the crack cocaine law, I fit this prescription. The judge can say, yeah, you know what, Mr. Lewis, you're right. But your conduct in prison leads me to feel that you are not a changed individual, because you still, if I got caught with a knife, that's like a gun in jail. If I got caught with drugs, and so you deny it. Even though you fit, you're supposed to get it. But so I'm just telling you, these are two things why I really didn't, well, one of the things that I really didn't have hope, because really my disciplinary record was pretty much spotless. So I didn't have to worry about that, because I ain't stupid enough to be caught with no drugs in prison. It's all, like I was telling you, this dumb stuff that I don't get involved with in prison, and not unless it's absolutely necessary for protection, then, but for me, somebody else would have been having that knife for me.
Meet the new context-sensitive properties panel in Premiere Pro. The go-to tools you need when and where you need them. Easily modify and apply settings across one or multiple tracks, all in one intuitive panel. Try it now.
It wouldn't be me holding the shit. So, but anyway, that's why I didn't jump up and saying, hooray and all that shit, because, and then I was in front of a tough racist ass judge, in my opinion, so I wasn't happy, or I wasn't hopeful at that time, but I was hopeful about my son and the fight that he was fighting for me out in the world. That's what I was hopeful about. I didn't know how he was going to do it or where it was going to come from, but I knew my son was going to get me out of prison one day. And that's where I was hopeful at, not for no First Step Act shit and none of that, because I was just telling you the reason why, and that's why.
How long before your actual release did you know that you were getting released?
Like 2 days before.
Really?
They hit that shit, hit me. I ain't see it coming, and we knew we had the motion in, and we had got a positive sign, but still we hadn't had a ruling. Positive sign was the prosecutor saying we're not going to pose Mr. Lewis asking, and matter of fact, we recommend that he get immediate release. So at that point, that's some positive shit, because they very rarely say that about, they always go against, no, we're not letting them out. And then, again, as you know, they take the two things, you're pleading from your lawyer, and they take the prosecutor pleading, and they put both of them together and they give it to the judge. And that's what they did. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, it's a positive sign what just happened, but I don't know when the judge gonna rule on it. And with dealing with this particular judge, he sets on our case for a long time, even when he sets on the shit, but he came back, I guess, a day or so with that ruling and ordered immediate release for me. And I was blown away. 2 days. It said Monday, I think that shit was like Friday or Saturday when it happened, and Monday you release. And so that's how that happened.
Well, by that time, you'd been in jail or in prison for 34 years. So for every day that you were alive, you were in prison for 1.3 days.
That's the calculation.
The majority of your life was spent in the cage, essentially.
Over the majority of my life, exactly. I was spent in the cage, yeah.
And now you're being told 2 days from now, you're going back out in the world. Yeah. You have a family waiting for you and everything else like that.
Yeah, I don't know how to think. I don't know how to feel. I mean, I know I'm happy, but I can't even explain this shit. It was incredible, man. Everything what you saying and looking at me saying, that's what the fuck I was. It's true. You feel it. You know, I've been locked up all this time, man, and I'm still like, is this shit real? I'm going into stores and shit. I don't know how to, and all this. Yeah, it's just, yeah, but it's a beautiful thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm loving this shit, but it is what you say, man. It's I don't even have the word for it, but I'm enjoying it compared to coming from where I came from in prison.
Well, yeah, when you went in, Michael Jackson was the biggest, celebrity in the world. There were maybe a flip phone or a brick phone if you were lucky.
We had the big phone with the battery, put in your car, plug up. Yeah, it was all that shit.
Yeah. The car phones were a thing. There was no internet. There was no World Wide Web. There were no iPhones.
No.
You're suddenly thrown into a planet that you have no idea about.
Yeah, it's like I'm just being born like a newborn baby for the most part. If I don't have my son and somewhat of support system or but him and what he brings to me, and that's why I look at a lot of guys. Well, I think about a lot of other guys who coming out of prison, out of my situation, and might not have a son or a support thing. Man, it's gonna be hard on them, man. Without him, I wouldn't be able to have the damn ID, just small stuff, birth certificate, a lot of things that you go there, they asking you dumbass questions after you tell them, I'm just coming out of prison after 34 years. Do you got 2 pieces of ID? Where the fuck I'm gonna get it from? I just came out 2 days ago, but you can't do nothing without this shit. It's just stupid. They need to change this shit, man. They need to give people an easier transition and help people, man, because it's really daunting, man. So I'm just blessed to have my son and that support.
Well, at the time that you went in, you were 26 years old. You probably weren't thinking about the implications of what you were doing. You were making money fast. You were, spending money fast. You were living the life.
Exactly.
But what you were doing with, the kilos, the hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of kilos you were pushing through the city.
Exactly.
Was causing the destruction of families, the destruction of communities.
City. Exactly.
I know families who had crack babies, and these kids always had problems throughout their lives.
Exactly.
Serious implications. When you think about what you did and what you contributed to during that time, how do you feel about it now as a 60-something-year-old man?
I feel absolutely bad when I think about the destruction that I helped to cause. You just put it so good, Vlad, that at that time as a young man, I had no idea of the damage and shit what I was doing with selling drugs in my community, in my city. Had no idea. And looking in hindsight or not, I started to realize it maybe after a good 5 or 10 years that I was incarcerated and started educating myself and understanding what I was doing. And every chance I get, I apologize to my people, my fellow citizens of Washington, D.C., as I'm doing right now. I apologize to them for the damage I caused to my city for selling drugs in my city. And all I can do now is what I've been doing. I've been out 18 days, and man, every chance I get, man, I'm trying to help and contribute to my city in a positive way and to my community. And that's what the rest of my life is going to be about. My son been doing it, but that's a little different, but I'm here too. And I have been doing it even from prison, whether it's from mentoring, whether it's from connecting younger guys who I see that have potential to go out in the world and be better and not commit crimes. So yeah, that's why I'm glad you brought that up, man, because I wanted to say it anyway, man. I apologize. But I do realize the damage that I caused to people, man, with helping to fuel their addiction or maybe start some addiction. And I'm sorry for that.
Well, before you got out, there was stickers all over the city saying "Free Tony Lewis" and so forth. Now you're out of prison. Rayful Edmond is still in prison, and he told on 20 people, if not more. I've interviewed people like Kurt Bone and Ears to Christ and Teflon Sean. They consider this guy a rat and just absolute filth. Is it ironic that you get out without telling on anybody and he's still in prison and he told on everyone, and ultimately he can't go back to DC and get the type of reception that you got?
Yeah, I feel that it is ironic. You know, I never thought that I would beat him out of prison in any kind of way because of what he did for the government, you know, and all I can say is I'm glad I'm free and I'm out of prison. For anything else concerning him, that's for him to deal with and whoever, you know. So, yeah, that's all I can say on that, you know.
Well, people ultimately didn't learn from your example. You know, you built things up to a certain degree. It came crashing down. You got life without parole. Rayful got life without parole. But, you know, the story continued on and on. Like, you know, we talked about the BMF story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they probably looked at you guys and said, well, we're smarter than them. We're not going to make the same mistakes. We're not going to, you know, stumble the way they did. We're not going to be flashy or so forth. But ultimately, everyone becomes flashy and everyone ends up going through the same thing. And,
exactly.
And all these big drug operations come crashing down. And I mean, I hung out with BMF. They had billboards in Atlanta that said the world is BMF's, like a slap in the face to the feds, essentially. I remember I saw that and I got scared. I'm like, I don't want to be around this, man. This is insanity. This is insanity because it was clear what was happening.
Yeah,
you know, like you could try to say it's a record label, but come on, there's no superstars on this label. And it continues on and on.
On.
There is another Tony Lewis Sr. right now that's thinking that he's not going to make the same mistakes as you. But I don't know of anyone that managed to just ride off into the sunset with millions of dollars to their name.
Yeah.
I mean, do you?
No. And that's why I just said what I just said to the young people, man, because, you know, I really care about our young people, especially in Washington, D.C., but all over the country. My son, Tony Lewis Jr., he really cares about the young people and the people of the city. And he's been out there harping this message and using me and my situation as an example for them to not go that route. But like you said, man, it's sad to say that it is going to be people who feel that they can be more slicker, they can be more low key, and that the United States government is not going to get them. Who beats the government? Nobody. You know, on your indictment, it's you versus the United States of America. You're not going to win. It's futile. It's stupid. And that's what I be trying to tell the young people. I got a job right now, man. I'm working in construction. I never thought I would want a job or have a job, but I'm happy to have a job. And I tell the young people, come on with me, man. Let's get a job. Let's work. But that doesn't have to be your end. It's businesses. You got ideas. You're young people. You're talented, but you got to start somewhere. And let's start, man, on the right track, man, with employment, man, and go from there. You might be owning the company in a certain amount of time. It just takes hard work, man. That easy money, what you think easy. And just like you said, Vlad, trying to be the next whatever, and think that you can outsmart the government it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Well, yeah. And, you know, DC has had such a serious history of drug issues to the point where Marion Barry got caught smoking crack on camera while you were locked up.
Exactly. I saw it.
And then got reelected as mayor again.
Right. Yeah.
Did you have any connections to Marion Barry during your time?
Yeah, the mayor came through a few times. He came. Rayful had knew him more better, but he was sneaking. Seriously, that's what it was, man. You know, yeah, man. So he liked it. He liked it what he liked, and God rest his soul. He was a good mayor, though, man. No matter what you say, he was a good ass mayor, man, for the black people of Washington D.C., man. Marion Barry. That's right.
Well, he really loved the community.
Yeah, he loved the community, man.
I have connections to DC and the government in DC and people that knew him well, and he just loved the people so much that they said, "Well, we probably got a relative that had the same type of problems, and we're willing to forget."
Yeah, people could relate to him, man. Him and his son, man. They came from that same fabric, that cloth, man. And like you say, you look at him and say, "Man, I got an uncle that dip and dab, but he's still doing his thing." But man, I love the mayor, man. I love Marion Barry. My son loves him, man. He great mayor, man. You know, yeah.
But wasn't it crazy at the time?
It was crazy,
like, man. I'm selling crack to the mayor of DC right now.
Shit, crazy. It was crazy, man. You're right. Everything you said right there, it made you scratch your head. So I can't believe this shit, man. It's happening, but it's happening. That's what it was, though, man. Yeah, rest his soul. Marion Barry.
Yeah, rest in peace, Marion Barry. He passed away some years ago.
Yeah.
He was a hell of a character, though.
Yeah,
for
hell
DC,
of a character.
man.
That's the right thing.
Hell of a character.
Word. Hell of a character. Yep.
Well, Tony Lewis Sr., man, I appreciate you coming in. You're fresh out, only a few days.
Yeah, man.
Out of prison after doing 34 years.
Yeah.
And, I think what I love so much about this interview is that you're not playing the victim mentality. You didn't say that the government was out to get me and it wasn't my fault. I had no other choice. You had choices back then, and you decided to go down a certain route.
Yeah.
And because of the choices you made, that's what got you to 34 years. Yeah. And you understand the implications of it, and you understand the implications of what you did.
Exactly.
And
I want the young people to know not to do what I did, come on and get this job with me, man. Let's do the legal shit, man. That's the only way in life. It's the only way, man. That's it, man.
Right. And on top of it, what you got away with 34 years ago, you cannot get away with
not even
in
close.
2023. There were no cell phones. They couldn't triangulate where you're from. There wasn't cameras on every street corner. That's why, I mean, the fact that Rayful could tell the police about 20 murders, those would have been solved in 2023 very quickly.
I think so. And it's and that's what really the crime has went to, is really, at least in our city, it's not so much of the drug selling, but it's the gun violence, the carjackings, and the robberies. And this is what we need to, and me and my son, we fight effortlessly to get the young people, man, to put them guns down. But in asking that, they need to have something to pick up, such as a job and such as opportunities, man, economic opportunities. And we asking our business community, our business owners, man, to give us guys who are either felons or ex-felons, give us a chance, give us a shot, man. You won't be disappointed, man. We want to we want to live an honest life, man. We want to put down the guns, man. That's what we want to do, man. Nobody feels safe.
Yeah. And like you said, you're very lucky in the extent that you have a son with an organization that focuses on, ex-felons and so forth.
Exactly.
For everyone else in your situation who comes out with a felony on their record, they can't get a job, they can't get an apartment.
Right.
They could legally be turned down for being an ex-felon from an apartment or a job.
Right.
It's not considered discrimination. It's considered perfectly legal, which ultimately makes, puts people in very bad situations. You then have to go live with a woman because she has an apartment in her name, and now you're living under her roof. She can kick you out whenever you want.
And ultimately, you will revert back to crime because there's no other choice, man.
You can't get a regular job because you can't get hired. So
and that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm talking to our business leaders.
It's a forever punishment.
And forever punishment, man. And it's bad for both sides. For legal people, for regular citizens, bad. And it's bad for the person who has to go back to putting that gun in his hand. And nobody wants violence, man. That shit is we got kids, we got women. It's just no good, man.
I perfectly, I totally agree, because I feel like if you paid your debt to society, you should be able to turn the page and try to integrate back into society like every other citizen.
Right.
But that's not the way it works.
It's not.
And I think it's a broken system.
Yeah. Man, you pretty good, man. I really enjoyed talking with you, man, because you put the facts out there, man. You're not just one-sided as some people, But I really appreciate this, sir, being here, and
Absolutely. Well, Tony Lewis Sr., man, I appreciate you coming in, and I really love your outlook that you have. You still have a lot of years left in you to contribute,
I hope so.
and to improve the city that once you did not improve so much.
Exactly.
And man, I wish you all the best.
Okay, thank you, man.
That's what it is.
Right.
Peace.
Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
All right, here we go. We have Keith KP Presley, also known as Chicago's Black Scarface. Welcome to VLAD TV.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here, man. It's a real treat.